Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. It is indeed a blessing to be here in Rudraprayag amidst the Himalayas to relish the nectar of Upanishads. The Upanishads are an ocean of nectar, nectarean wisdom that is required to master the art and science of living. Today, we have assembled here to relish few drops of this nectar. Veda. The Veda has the root of vid, which means to know. Therefore, the Vedas are a body of knowledge which reveal both the means and the goals for successful life and living. The means and the goals for a prosperous living in this very world and also for the life after. All the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, are covered in detail. The Vedas broadly can be classified into two parts, Karmakanda and Brahmakanda. The two parts of the Vedas are Karmakanda and Brahmakanda. Karmakanda deals with rituals, deals with yajnas, deals with the karmas that need to be done for all the varnas and all the ashramas. Brahmakanda deals with knowing that Parabrahman. Therefore, Brahmakanda is also called Vedanta, Anta of the Vedas, where we get complete clarity on the very purpose of life and living. While in Karmakanda, we get to know how to lead a successful life in this world, Brahmakanda, Vedanta teaches us how to realize the meaning of life, how to realize the purpose of this life, and how to realize Parabrahman, Sriman Narayana. Vedanta is also called Upanishads. Upanishad. Upanishads are those body of knowledge that are learned by sitting closer. Closer to who? By who? The disciple sits closer to the Guru and in that process learns, and in that process he gets a revelation of the meaning and purpose of life. By this very definition, we also get to know that Upanishads therefore are also Rahasya Granthas, primarily are taught by qualified teachers to deserving students. Two adjectives here, qualified teachers and deserving students. And in the good old days, the study of Upanishads meant dedicating one's life to the very cause. In order for us to realize the treasury of Upanishads, it takes more than a lifetime. To take this opportunity of being here on the sacred land, we will try and taste few drops of nectar, few drops from the Esha Upanishads. Upanishads are several in number, but primarily 10 Upanishads are considered authoritative, the primary Upanishads, and are celebrated as the Esha Upanishads. Esha, Kena, Kata, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitriya, Aittareya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka, the Esha Upanishads. Apart from these 10 Upanishads, there are also other important Upanishads: Svetashvatara, Kaushitaki, Nrisimhatapaniya, Subala, Mahanarayana. Why these are all considered as authoritative? Why should we consider these 10 Upanishads and few others as the most authoritative Upanishads? Because our Acharyas have focused primarily on writing commentaries to these Upanishads. Hence, they become authoritative. Be it Ramanujacharya or Adi Shankara or Madhvacharya and their respective followers, they have all dedicated their lives in order to unravel the mystery of the Upanishads. Upanishads are not easy to understand, highly philosophical in nature. The messages are conveyed using various metaphors, stories, legends, riddles, or riddle-like statements. It therefore requires commentaries which unravel these mysteries so that we can relish the true purport of these Upanishads. Sanatana Dharma is based on 3 pillars. While when we look at our Shastras are very extensive. We have an extensive body of knowledge, which we call them as Shastras. But within this body of knowledge, there are 3 key pillars, 3 pillars of Sanatana Dharma, which are celebrated as Prasthanatraya. 3 pillars of Sanatana Dharma being the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras. The Brahma Sutras are sutras, maxims, which capture the essence of the Upanishads. Vedavyasa wanted to ensure that the message of the Upanishads was clearly understood by one and all, because Upanishads talk in their own language. It is very difficult for us to comprehend the various messages presented in a variety of formats. Typically, the Upanishads are all conversations happening between the Guru and the Sishya. And while the Guru and Sishya understand what's going on, we will fail to grasp what is the topic that is being discussed and the purport of the message. Therefore, Vedavyasa decided to codify, demystify, and also bring in statements which will synchronize, harmonize the various messages of the Upanishads, and that is what is known as Brahma Sutras. Sutra style way of presenting the essence of the Upanishads. And the third pillar of Sanatana Dharma, third pillar of Prasthanatraya, is something what is very, very dear to all of us, which is Bhagavad Gita, which is again Upanishad Sara presented to us by Bhagavan himself. Sarvopanishado gavaha dogdha gopalanandanaha partho vatsa sudhir bhokta dugdham Gitamritam mahat. The Gitamrita is essentially Amrita churned from the ocean of Amrita of Upanishads. And for our sake, Gita Charya presents the truths of the Upanishads in a way that we can understand. So therefore, today we will try to take 10 sips of nectar. 10 sips. 10 sips which will give us glimpses of the grandeur of these Upanishads. We can obviously select several parts of the Upanishads for discussion, but I have chosen today for us to relish few simple yet profound statements, profound mantras, profound statements, profound drops of nectar. Some of them possibly we are already familiar. We have relished them in the context of relishing Gita. Some of them possibly are new to us. Esha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitriya, Aittareya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka. From Esha, we will sip the nectar with a mantra, Na Vijugupsate. Na Vijugupsate is the first mantra. We can call them 10 magnetizing mantras or 10 maxims for success, or we can call them in very different ways, but all of these statements put together will really give us a revitalizing transformation in our own journeys. Kena Atmana Vindate Viryam. Kata Shreyohi Dhirobi Abhipreyaso Vinite. Prashna Shraddhaya Samvatsaram Samvatsyata. Mundaka Vivrinute Tanuswam. Mandukya Omiti Etadaksharam Idagum Sarvam. Taitriya Anandi Bhavati. Aittareya Prajnanam Brahma. Chandogya Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhihi. Brihadaranyaka Kamamaya Evayam Purushaiti. We will individually look at each of these profound statements from the Upanishads, and then towards the end we will see how we can connect all of them into a beautiful garland that we can wear. The first Upanishad that we will take up is Ishavasya Upanishad. Isha Na Vijugupsate. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati sarvabhuteshu cha atmanam tatha na vijigupsate. That is the entire mantra, shloka. Which essentially, na vijigupsate. That's the key for us to focus on. Na vijigupsa. Jigupsa, hatred, revulsion. Na vijigupsate. This is foundational teaching of the Upanishads. Now Krishna, when he talks about the characteristics of a bhakta, he starts off saying, hey Arjuna, let me teach you who an ideal bhakta is and what his characteristics are. And he starts off saying, Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitrah karuna evacha. Adveshta sarvabhutanam. This is a foundational value for all of us. Adveshta. Jigupsa, na vijigupsate. No revulsion, no hatred. Because when the heart is filled with hatred, there is no room for Krishna. Therefore, the Upanishad says, Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati sarvabhuteshu cha atmanam tathana vijigupsate. The moment one realizes the presence of Bhagavan, presence of that Paramatma in each and every one. That realization, the outcome of that realization is that there is no room for hatred whatsoever. We need to understand that hatred or aversion and attachment are two sides of the same coin. While repeatedly our Shastras talk about the value of detachment, we also need to understand that attachment and aversion are one and the same in terms of their impact. They are two sides of the same coin. When we are attached to someone, we are emotionally consumed by that someone. When we are attached to something, not only someone, it can be something or someone, the object of our attachment consumes us completely. Similarly, when we have hatred towards someone or something, that negative emotion also consumes us completely. Now, when we are consumed by a negative emotion for someone or something, which essentially means we have no time for Krishna. The more we are consumed by a negative emotion for something or someone, the less time we have for our Krishna. So therefore, any journey of spiritual progress has to necessarily begin with the foundation of na vijigupsate. If this foundation is shaky, even if we move farther, at some point of time, we will have to fall. It is the way we look at people who hurt us, the way we respond to people to hurt us is actually a barometer for the progress that we make in our spiritual lives. Because hatred, after all, is like having hatred in the heart is like holding charcoal in the hand in order to hurl it at someone who has hurt us. Hatred hurts us more than the one who has actually ended up hurting us. Therefore, in the Esha Upanishad, it is very clearly declared that anyone who has to spiritually grow needs to necessarily cultivate na vijigupsate. Na vijigupsate is foundational. Esha Kena Upanishad Atmana Vindate Viryam. Atmana Vindate Viryam. The Upanishad, in the context of talking about how do we cultivate constant contemplation on Bhagavan, it recommends saying our duty is to try to contemplate. Our duty is try to meditate. But the source and strength for contemplation and meditation is Bhagavan. Because meditation or contemplation, constant contemplation, this is the Vedas and the Upanishads say Vidya, Nididhyasana, Darshana, Upasana, they are all used synonymously because they are all interrelated. Vidya is knowledge. Nididhyasana, contemplation with focus, with concentration. Dhyana, meditation. Upasana. Upasana is meditation, contemplation, but bringing the momentum of emotion to the moment of meditation is upasana. Let me repeat that. Bringing the momentum of emotion to the moment of meditation. Because meditation is not dry contemplation. Meditation is actually a reciprocal activity. It is an activity where we actually reciprocate with Krishna. It is not one way, it is two way. It is not just we contemplating on Bhagavan. Our contemplation on Bhagavan is one part of meditation, but the strength to continue that comes from Bhagavan. That's why Kena Upanishad says, Atmana vindate viryam. The viryam, the strength that is required. Also knowing what is the source of that nectar, that happiness that we get from meditation. When we contemplate and when we meditate and when we are deep into that state, we experience that bliss. The Upanishad says that source of that bliss is Bhagavan. It is the source being Bhagavan. For that state to continue, it requires His grace, and the strength to continue contemplation comes from Bhagavan. So therefore, when we think we struggle to meditate, and the moment we say meditation, suddenly it conjures up images of sitting in a corner, completely noiseless environment, total focus on something, doing nothing, stilling the mind. Yes, stilling the mind is definitely part of meditation, but that's not the end of meditation. A still mind should become home for Krishna, and the reciprocation, that loving reciprocation should happen in that meditation, and that is only when that nididhyasana can remove all our fears, can destroy all our papa karmas. Because the purpose of doing this contemplation on Krishna is not just to feel good. Feeling good is important. When the mind stills, we will feel good. When the mind is calm, we will definitely feel good. But that's not the end of nididhyasana. The end of nididhyasana, upasana, is darshana. That is why they are all used synonymously. Vedana, nididhyasana, upasana, darshana. In the process of that contemplation, Bhagavan reveals Himself to us. And it is that revelation which becomes the source of strength for us, not just to continue meditation for that moment, but take meditation forward to the way of life and living. Because bhakti enhances the scope of dhyana. It enhances the scope of dhyana and includes action and emotion. We can be doing actions and be meditating. We refer to this analogy of the musicians having shruti. They set a shruti and they start singing to it, and it's constantly playing as a background, and without that shruti they cannot perform. The shruti is required for continuous performance. So Krishna dhyana has to become like the background shruti, and Krishna being the source, He gives the strength for continuing the meditation even when we are doing actions. We may be at work, we may be doing household chores, we may be doing any activity, Krishna dhyana can go on in the background. Atmana vindate viryam. Katopanishad. Katopanishad is the famous Upanishad which is the conversation between Nachiketas and Yama. Shreyascha preyascha manushyametaha tau samparitya vivinakti dhiraha Shreyo hi dhiro bhi preyaso vrinite preyo manto yogakshemad vrinite. Very, very profound shloka. If we have to choose one statement from the Upanishads, this is that statement which can really guide, be our torchlight for our life and living. In summary, what this says is we are always presented with two choices in our life. Anything that we do is choice making. We are infinite choice makers. We are making choices all the time, right from the time we wake up in the morning until we go back to bed. We are making choices. Whether we realize it or not, there are unconscious choices, there are conscious choices. And without us knowing, majority of the time we are actually making unconscious choices. We are programmed to behave in certain way. We get down from the bed in certain way, pick up the brush in certain way, start brushing in certain way, even without realizing. Every trivial activity that we do, choice making is not about big decisions in life. Even trivial actions, every action that we do is choice making. We are making choices all the time. Yamadharmaraja tells Nachiketas that all these myriad of choices, these millions of choices that we make, can be categorized in just two categories: Shreyas, Preyas. And the one who is really wise always chooses Shreyas over Preyas. Shreyohi dhiraha abhipreyaso vrinite. He chooses Shreyas and discards Preyas. Shreyas, simply put, is what is good, long-term good. Preyas is what seems pleasant, what is short-term want, but leads to long-term failures. So therefore, when we reflect on every choice that we make, they only fall in these two categories. Either the choice that we make can bring us long-term good, or they are only catering to our short-term want. Most of our decisions are driven for bodily gratification, driven by our sensual desires, and they all fall in the category of praise, short-term wants. To gain anything good, we need to sacrifice something. Short-term want has to be sacrificed for long-term gain. Praise has to be sacrificed. We repeatedly take this example of sleep. 5 minutes of extra sleep in the morning. More so when we are in yatra, this becomes very, very crucial. 5 minutes may not make a huge difference in our day-to-day life and living, but in yatra times, 5 minutes can make a huge difference in terms of whether we get darshan on time or not. Now, that 5 minutes of postponing getting up, short-term want. Short-term want is caving in to our bodily needs, sense gratification. Long-term good. When we look at the Purusharthas, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Moksha is long-term good. Normally, it is very difficult for anyone to reconcile to the fact that there is something which is long-term good. How many even contemplate on moksha? How many contemplate on what is long-term good? In today's society, everyone is driven about how do we have a pleasurable life today, this moment, short-term wants. And therefore, the Upanishad clearly says, Dhiraha, a really wise man. Who is a wise man? Who has understood the truth, who has understood the meaning of life, who has understood that the purpose of this human life is only to gain moksha. The purpose of this life is to avoid another life. And that dhira always chooses Shreyas over Preyas. Shreyohi dhirobhi abhipreyaso vranite. Esha Kena Prashna Shraddhaya Samvatsaram Samvatsyata. Very, very profound. It's a very succinct statement, but very profound and very relevant for all of us. Six sages who wanted to inquire into truth, wanted to realize that Parabrahman, they decided to approach the illustrious sage Pippalada. Pippalada was known to be a Brahmagyani. So all these six sages decided they will approach Pippalada so that he can accept them as his Sishyas. And all these six sages are highly qualified. They are all sages who have been practicing tapasya for many years. So they wanted more clarity and acquire more knowledge. So therefore, the six sages proceed and they reach the ashrama of Pippalada. And then they submit themselves to Pippalada and then say, we are very eager, very keen to know more about Tattva, Hita, Purushartha. Please teach us so that we realize that Paramatma, that Purushottama. Pippalada just makes one simple statement. Shraddhaya Samvatsaram Samvatsyata. He says, thank you for coming. Please, for 1 year, cultivate Shraddha, cultivate patience and be here, and then I will come back and we will continue our conversation. This is how it used to be in good old days. Imagine if the same thing happens today. Somebody comes and says, I want to know something, asks a question, and you say, Shraddhaya, Samvatsaram, Samvatsara, goodbye, see you later. They will go back. But those days, they had great resolve, because inquiry into truth is not an ordinary affair. It requires tremendous amounts of Shraddha, tremendous amounts of patience. Unfortunately, what we lack today is patience. We all want answers in 2 minutes. 2-minute culture. We are ready to spend 20, 22 years and study something which we will never apply in our lives. We are ready to go through that. But then when it comes to knowing truth, knowing God, knowing about Brahman, knowing about Krishna, knowing about Karma Yoga, knowing about Bhakti Yoga, we want answers in 2 minutes. You post a 1-hour video, nobody watches. They say, we want, same thing, can you give us in 2 minutes? No, not 2 minutes. 60 seconds, they say shorts today, shorts. 60 seconds. 60 seconds, they want Brahmagyana. We need to take them to Pippalada. Shraddhaya Samvatsaram Samvatsyata. Patience is very, very important in any spiritual journey, because a flower needs to blossom at a rate specified by nature. The blossoming of a flower is determined by nature. We cannot go to a flower and say, for me, can you accelerate blossoming? Not possible. Each and every one of us take our own time to blossom, because we all come with our own baggage of vasanas, our own mental makeups. So therefore, if we are not patient enough, and if we need everything in 2 minutes, it is not going to happen. What is going to happen is, we will make conclusions that will take us away from the path. This is where Shraddha becomes very crucial. Now, Shraddha, let me take this analogy. Having doubts is very important, but having Shraddha is also equally important. As we are all used to, I like this analogy of cars always, right? So let me take the analogy of a car. Shraddha and doubts are like accelerator and brake. We need both. To drive to our destination, we need accelerator, we need brake as well. Now, if we don't have a brake and only accelerator, what may happen is we will accelerate, move forward, but we may be going in the wrong direction, accelerating in the wrong direction all the time. So, even Shraddha has to be Sattvika Shraddha. That is why Krishna says, hey Arjuna, Shraddha is important, but just reflect on what kind of Shraddha you have. So therefore, Shraddha is very important. That gives us the acceleration to move forward. Now, imagine if a car has only a brake, no accelerator. We will not move anywhere. It's like having only doubts, always doubting everything without Shraddha is doing analysis paralysis. We have doubts should be positive, it should be with a spirit of inquiry. When we inquire with a spirit of knowing, with Shraddha, then the car gets into the right direction. The brakes will ensure that we do not go in the wrong direction. When we see it's going in the wrong direction, we put a brake. We get the right direction, and then we accelerate. Shraddha opens up our mind to new possibilities. We don't realize this many times. Sometimes, blind faith is an oxymoron, right? We all know this. There is nothing called blind faith. Whoever says blind faith, they do not understand faith. They do not understand Shraddha. It's an oxymoron. It's not possible. Faith is faith. Faith is the foundation. And faith opens up our mind to possibilities that are unimaginable. The very faith, the very Shraddha that a divine principle, Krishna, is overseeing, guiding, and leading us, opens our mind to possibilities that even when we face challenges and failures, we know that He is taking care. There is a plan that's being orchestrated. Shraddha helps us to keep moving forward. That's why the analogy of an accelerator is very appropriate for Shraddha. Once we are in the right direction, it is Shraddha that accelerates our journey. That is why Pippalada beautifully says, Shraddhaya samvatsaram samvatsyata, he says. And the sages they clearly understand the message. Unlike us, for 1 year, they are very much there in the ashrama. 1 year they do tapasya, and then the conversation that happens, Pippalada Samvada, the instructions of Pippalada is so grand. All the sages ask 6 questions and 6 answers are given. But that is a topic for some other day. So the nectar that we need to sip here from Prashna Upanishad is Shraddhaya Samvatsaram Samvatsyata. Esha, Kena, Kata, Prashna, Mundaka Upanishad. Vivrinute Tanu Swam. That's the nectar we have to relish. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha namedaya nabahuna shrutena yame vaishavrinate tena labhyaha tasyaisha atma vivrinute tanum swam. What the Upanishad says, Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha namedaya nabahuna shrutena yame vaishavrinate tena labhyaha. This is going to be a shocker for all of us. The first part of the statement is going to be a big shock. The Upanishad says, Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha namedaya nabahuna shrutena yame vaishavrinate. It says, no amount of learning, no amount of study of philosophy, no amount of reflection, no amount of doing various sadhanas, practices will help us, will not take us to where we need to go. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha namedhaya nabahuna shrutena yame vaishavrinate tena labhyaha tasyaisha atma vivrinate tanum swam. It says, progressing on the path of spirituality, progressing spiritually, growing spiritually, while we do all the sadhanas, these sadhanas do not take us forward to our destination. Then what takes us forward to the destination? Vivrinate tanum swam. Krishna has to choose us. Only the chosen ones are eventually taken to the destination. shocking, and also something which is thought provoking. Immediately we will respond to this. Krishna therefore is very partial. No? Bhagavan, he has to choose us, and he will only choose few people. What happens to people if he does not choose? Why should he choose only few? Why should he not leave out others? Immediately question is asked. This is why we need to also reflect on Bhagavan is not some energy, is not some principle. He is a loving, caring person. He is a reciprocating person. So when he is a reciprocating person, when we love him, he reciprocates. So therefore, if someone ignores him, he is happy. If someone doesn't love him, he is happy. He still loves them, but then he lets them be. Whoever wants to be on their own, they can be on their own. They are subject to the law of karma, and they continue to be on their own. Bhagavan is happy being a witness. He just ensures that the law of karma is taken care of. On the other hand, if someone starts to love him, he cannot stop reciprocating that love. And to those who love him, he reciprocates by showering love, and he intervenes to take care of them. So therefore, when the Upanishad says, Vivrinate tanum swam, he makes a choice, which means we have to understand that yes, Bhagavan chooses a few, but he also keeps the door open for people to come and say, choose me. He gives the opportunity, he keeps the door. So this is what we say, he is impartially partial. He is neither partial nor impartial. He is impartially partial. He is partial to few. He is partial to few. But he keeps the door open, the door of partiality open, so that anybody can walk in to be chosen by Bhagavan. Therefore, when the Upanishad says, Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha namedaya nabahuna shutena yamevaisha vrinate tena labhyaha tasyaisha atma vivrinate tanum swam. Tasyaisha atma vivrinate tanum swam. It is Bhagavan who chooses, and therefore our prayers should be to be chosen by him. We need to constantly pray that we be the chosen ones. May we be chosen by Krishna all the time. Esha, Kena, Kata, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya. The sixth Upanishad, the sixth sip of nectar that we will take is from Mandukya Upanishad. Omiti etadaksharam idagum sarvam. Omiti etadaksharam idagum sarvam. The Upanishad says, Om, Omkara, Pranava, says, Omiti etadaksharam idagum sarvam. All this that we see and not see is Om, Omkara, Pranava, which means Om is the manifestation of Bhagavan. Om is the manifestation of Bhagavan, and therefore one needs to necessarily keep contemplating on Omkara. Chanting Om constantly cleanses our mind and helps us continue the contemplation on Bhagavan. Omkara represents 4 facets of Bhagavan. The Upanishads talks about how Pranava is a manifestation, not only a manifestation of Bhagavan, it is a manifestation of 4 Vyuha forms of Bhagavan. We all know that Narayana has 4 Vyuha forms. Vasudeva, Samkarshana, Pradyumna Aniruddha. These are various Vyuha forms of Bhagavan. The Paravasudeva in Vaikuntha then takes the form, he emanates and he becomes Vyuha Vasudeva. And from Vyuha Vasudeva, then three more Vyuhas emanate. Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Samkarshana. Now the Omkara can be split into four parts. Akara, Ukara, Makara, Ardhamatra. Ardhamatra is that little symbol that we put on top of Om. Akara, Ukara, Makara, Ardhamatra. So these four parts of Omkara essentially are four manifestations of the Vyuha forms of Bhagavan. Akara, Aniruddha. Akara is the manifestation of Aniruddha, who governs our waking state. When we are awake, Bhagavan governs our wakefulness. When we are awake and we are doing all activities, we operate in four states. Normally only three states, and only when we really reach the final stage, we get into the fourth stage of Turiya stage. Jagrata Dasha, Swapna Dasha, Sushupti Dasha, Turiya Dasha. These are the four states in which we operate. Jagrata, when we are awake all the time. It is during Jagrata Dasha, Aniruddha, he governs, he is the one who rules, and Akara of Omkara represents Aniruddha. Ukara. Ukara is represented by Pradyumna. Pradyumna governs our Swapna Dasha. He is the one who ensures that Karma Phala is granted during our Swapnas. All our dreams are nothing but exhaustion of all our karmas, both Punya Karma and Papa Karma. We get all kinds of dreams. Happy dreams, sorrowful dreams, horror dreams, joyful dreams, all kinds of dreams. Dream is nothing but our own experience of our karmas. And just like how there is a karma phala during our wakeful state, there is a karma phala during the dream state as well. And Pradyumna is the one who governs the Swapna Dasha. Sushupti Dasha is governed by Samkarshana. Samkarshana is a manifestation, represents Makara. Akara, Ukara, Makara. Makara manifests as Samkarshana. Samkarshana represents Makara in Omkara, who governs our Sushupti Dasha. When we are in deep sleep, when we are one with Paramatma, enjoying that bliss, Samkarshana is the one who gives us that bliss. And the fourth stage, the Ardhamatra and Pranava, represents Vasudeva, Vyuha Vasudeva. And this is state where the bliss of Sushupti continues even after sleep. We are one with Bhagavan without any interruption. That is almost a stage close to moksha. So thus, contemplating on Omkara through all the four states of our being, Jagrata Dasha, Swapna Dasha, Sushupti Dasha, Turiya Dasha. During all the four states, by contemplating on Omkara, we are contemplating on four different facets of Bhagavan, who is governing our existence during all the four states of our life. Omiti etadaksharam idagum sarvam. Esha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya. The seventh Upanishad that we will take up is Taitriya Upanishad. And the drop of nectar that we are going to sip is really nectarine. Anandi bhavati. Anandi bhavati. Yadvai tat sukrutam. Raso vaisaha. Rasaghyevayam labdva anandi bhavati. What a profound declaration in the Taitriya Upanishad. Yadvaitat Sukrutam. Sukruta, Bhagavan is Sukruta, the one who does good deeds. The Upanishad calls him Sukruta. He is the creator who is Sukruta, which means creation is a good deed. Why? By creating, he is giving us an opportunity. Therefore, it's a good deed. Yadvaitat Sukrutam. Raso vai saha. Rasagyevayam labdhva anandhi bhavati. It is by attaining him that we experience that ananda. Anandi bhavati. Very important, not anando bhavati. There is a difference. What is the difference? Anando bhavati means we become happiness, we become sukha. Anandi bhavati means we become endowed with bliss. There is a big difference. We do not become bliss, we become blissful. Anandi bhavati. Because we remain as individuals. Even in moksha, when we attain Bhagavan, our individuality is still retained. Atma remains as Atma. The oneness with Paramatma is not that the identity of the Atma is lost. The Atma remains, but it is in a state where the Upanishads say Samyapatti, equal in terms of experiencing the bliss. Anandi bhavati. We become so blissful that cannot be described in words. Bhagavan is the source of all bliss. He is a reservoir of multiple Kalyana gunas. And every guna helps us to relate with Bhagavan. Most of his gunas showcase his greatness. And when we realize his greatness, we automatically submit to him. When we realize Bhagavan's greatness, without us even knowing, the moment we realize that he is so great, we automatically submit to him. But that submission need not be layered, it did not have the layering of love. We may submit to him, but maybe not necessarily with love, because greatness may invoke submission, but not love. A person may be very great, we may respect him, but we need not love him. Therefore, there are some gunas that are required which will invoke that love in us, kindle that sense of intense thirst and longing for him. This is his guna of Madhurya. His guna of Madhurya invokes intense longing for him. That's the bliss, that's the sweetness. When the Upanishad says Anandi Bhavati, it is to be immersed in ocean of Madhurya. We don't need any other guna. Until we reach Vaikuntha, we need every other guna for us to relate to. We need to contemplate on thousands and thousands of his gunas so that we stay connected with him. Once we reach him and attain him, we don't need any other gunas. We only need his guna of Madhurya to be immersed, to be soaked in that sweetness. Our journey is a journey of quest for truth. This quest for truth is quest for happiness. This quest for happiness is quest for sweetness. And the quest for sweetness is quest for Krishna. Anandi Bhavati. Kena, Esha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitriya, Aittareya. Aittareya Upanishad. Prajnanam Brahma. Very simple statement. Prajnanam Brahma, our acharyas have written hundreds of pages on this one simple statement. I'm not going to scare you saying we are going to now discuss all those 100 pages. Prajnanam Brahma. Simply put, Prajnanam. Bhagavan, Narayana, is Prajnanam, the Upanishad says. Prajnanam. He is endowed with limitless jnana. He is jnana swarupa. He is jnana gunaka. Two important terms that we need to remember. So some of these Sanskrit terms we have to, over a period of time, internalize. May seem very daunting to begin with. Doesn't matter. We learn many physics formulas which we don't even know, even after finishing our graduation. So therefore, sometimes even if we do not understand, knowing some of these statements become very, very important. At some stage, they will blossom and they will give us the bliss that we need. Jnana Gunaka, Jnana Swarupa. Bhagavan is Jnana Swarupa. His nature is Jnana. His nature is Jnana. He is Jnana himself, embodiment of Jnana. He is also Jnana Gunaka. What is Jnana Gunaka? He is endowed with limitless knowledge. What do we mean by limitless knowledge? Prajnanam. Pra can mean many things. Source, strength, origin. So he is the source of all knowledge. He is origin of all knowledge. He is the strength of all knowledge. He is omniscient. In simple terms, we all say Bhagavan is omniscient. What does it mean when we say he is omniscient? Krishna is omniscient. What can we understand when we say he is omniscient? A simple way to understand that when we say Bhagavan is omniscient means he knows more than me what I need. He is all knowing. He is all knowing. If he is all knowing, he should know more than me what I need. He knows better what I need. I have very limited knowledge. So therefore, whatever I think I need, whatever I think I want is based on our limited faculties. Bhagavan, Prajnanam Brahma, clearly reveals that he knows more than what we need. And when he knows what we need, he will ensure that we get what we need. And that is the reason why when we say we have to always align our will with Bhagavan's will. It is his will that works all the time. We are governed by his will. We keep saying this. Nimittamatram bhava. When we say that with the awareness that he knows more than what I know. And therefore, knowing his will becomes very important. The moment we say we have to align with Bhagavan's will, so immediate question is, how do I know his will? I know my will. I want to do this today. But how do I know if that is Bhagavan's will? How do I know Bhagavan's will? That's the question we will ask. How do we know Bhagavan's will? Bhagavan's will is known through Bhagavan's words, through the Shastra. The Shastras reveal his will. Bhagavan's will is known through the Acharya. It is through the words of the Acharya, Bhagavan's will is known. Bhagavan's will is known through circumstances which are out of our control. If something goes beyond our control, immediately we know that it is Bhagavan's will and there is something good in store. We had a breakdown of bus today. 1 hour we were standing outside. The tire was punctured. 1 hour we had to stay outside. Two important things that we need to reflect on. Throughout that 1 hour there was no rains. We were happily standing outside without any rains. There were rains before, there were rains after. And that 1 hour delay ensured that we could have the blissful 12 o'clock Arati of Purushottama in Devaprayag. During that time, possibly we were all complaining, what is this? We are on the road for 1 hour. Bhagavan's will, he willed that we have to be blessed with a special darshan. And that special darshan happened. He knows, and he knows that this is what we actually need. He knows what we need more than what we know. So therefore, when we contemplate on Prajnanam Brahma, Bhagavan being Jnana Swarupa, Jnana Gunaka, the omniscient, we should always contemplate on how he will always take care of us, our needs. Not just our needs, even our wants are being taken care of. There's a difference, right, between wants and needs. Wants are a little bit more than needs. And we have too many wants. And whether we realize it or not, he has been pampering us a lot wherever we go. Did we even imagine that we will have such a serene sitting in the midst of a tough yatra to really sit, relax, and discuss the philosophy of Upanishads? Prajnanam Brahma. Esha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitriya, Aittareya, Chandogya. Chandogya Upanishad is one of the most profound, significant Upanishads belonging to Samaveda. While there are several gems of wisdom in Chandogya Upanishad, I thought it is highly relevant to take something which we already know. Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhihi Sattva Shuddhau Dhruva Smritihi Smritir Lambe Sarvagranthinaam Vipramokshaha. Ahara, food, very favorite topic for all of us. Food for all of us has more or less has become the end, not the means. Somehow, food has become central to our life and living. If we really examine our lives, and if we really look at all the plans that we do on a day-to-day basis, it's not a surprise. It is the menu of the day that takes the prime stage. And what to buy for that menu? Some of us even go to the extent of planning for the whole week. Food is at the center of everything else. When we look at our weekly agenda, and if we say there are 20 lines there, 19 lines are around planning for food throughout the week. When we are happy, we celebrate with food. When we are sad, we commiserate with food. When there is vacuum in life, we literally fill the vacuum with food, inside and outside. Somehow, food has become an end by itself. Whereas, our Shastras say, food is a means. Very important, no doubt. Krishna Prasada, without it, there is no satsang. Krishna Prasada is important. We are going to have very good Prasada every day after satsang. But food is a means to meaningful life. Food is a means to purposeful life. These two sentences we need to reflect on. When we say food is a means to meaningful life, only with the right food we will discover the right meaning of life. Only with the right food we will discover the right purpose of life. When the food that goes in is not right, it becomes challenging for us to discover the true meaning and purpose of life. That is why the Upanishad says, Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhihi. Sattva Shuddhau Dhruva Smritihi. Dhruva Smriti. Remembrance. Very important for all of us, and especially children out here. Good old days, and even now, and of course, our satsang children are definitely need to be credited with that. It is recommended that we not just chant, we by heart shlokas. Vishnu Sahasranama has to be learned by heart. Bhagavad Gita as much as possible, not 700 shlokas, few shlokas here and there. Remembrance is a faculty given to us which has to be nurtured and strengthened. Now, the remembrance, the faculty of remembering is given to us for only one purpose, remembering Krishna. But we use that for remembering everything else. Dhruva Smriti, steadfast remembrance. We immediately say, yes, we also have steadfast remembrance. With great resoluteness, we remember everything. But what we need to remember takes a backseat. So, Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhi, the cleansing of the mind. Ahara, typically, food is not only for physical nourishment. Physical nourishment is one part of the purpose of eating. All the Western philosophy, the diets based on the Western thinking is looking at physical nourishment. What is good for the physical body? The focus is to make the body strong, nourish the body. But our Shastras look at us as a holistic beings. We are both spiritual and physical. And we need to nourish both realms, the spiritual realm and the physical realm. And therefore, for us to cultivate thoughts that are sattvic in nature, sattvika ahara becomes very important. It is ahara, the type of ahara which has influence on the kind of thoughts that we can process. There are certain types of ahara. So, ahara is divided into three based on jati, based on ashraya, based on nimitta. Jati, there are certain types of food which are prone to kindle rajas and tamas in us, which means even the rajasic desires that are put to sleep when that kind of ahara is taken, those desires, those vasanas are kindled, they rise in the mind. So therefore the mind is consumed by thoughts which are rajasic in nature, which are tamasic in nature. We ourselves experience this many times. Sometimes we see how all of a sudden our mind is filled with tamasic thoughts, rajasic thoughts. They are all outcome of the kind of food that we consume. The more sattvic the food is, more sattvic the thoughts are. Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhi. Sattva Shuddhau Dhruva Smritihi. Without sattva, remembrance cannot be steadfast. We also see this. It is not easy to by heart certain things. It doesn't come naturally to all. It takes a lot of effort. And we also see this in our own experience. Sometimes we all with great shraddha sit and say, let me memorize. And we start. After a few minutes we give up. Because sattva doesn't cooperate. There is not enough sattva to help the process. Very clear, the Upanishad says there is a direct correlation. Sattva suddhau dhruva smritihi. Also, contemplation on Krishna to be dhruva smriti. If we have to have unflinching contemplation, undivided contemplation, stay connected with Krishna all the time, that is dhruva smriti. No. Swami Ramanuja in the Sri Bhashya writes, Tailadharavat avichinna matram, he says. Beautiful analogy he gives. No, if we pour water, water splashes all over. But if we take oil and we start pouring it, we see how the oil, Tailadharavat avichinna, doesn't splash at all. Dhruva smriti is like that pouring of that oil from a tap to a vessel without any splashing. Tailadharavat avichinna matra smriti sandhanam rupam pritihi. Love towards Krishna should be unflinching, undivided, constant remembrance, and it is only sattva, cultivation of sattva. So throughout the Gita, Krishna repeatedly keeps saying, hey Arjuna, cultivate sattva, cultivate sattva, cultivate sattva. So the Upanishad says, ahara shuddhau sattva shuddhihi, sattva shuddhau dhruva smritihi, smritir lambhe sarva grantinam, smritir lambhe sarva grantinam. Granthi, knots in our hearts, all the doubts, all the misgivings. Smritir lambhe, the moment we have undivided, unflinching connect with Krishna, all the doubts and misgivings melt automatically. We experience that bliss within us, that unknowable bliss which cannot be explained in words. Thus, the Chandogya Upanishad deals with the importance of sattva guna. Ahara shuddhau sattva shuddhihi. Esha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitriya, Aittareya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka. Brihadaranyaka, Brihad. This is the largest of all the Upanishads. We need to spend another 2 hours. 2 hours is not enough. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad by itself will take a lifetime or more. From Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we will take something which we all are familiar with. It's one of my very favorite shlokas, which I often quote. Kamamaya evayam purusha iti. Sa yatha kamo bhavati tat kratur bhavati. Yat kratur bhavati tat karma kurute. Yat karma kurute tadavi sampadhyate. What a simple but profound statement. Kamamaya purusha eva iti. You are what your deep diving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. Very simple. Therefore, the destiny is determined by the desire. The final D is determined by the first D, desire. This desire can act both as a lock and a key. This is the beauty of this desire. It can act as both lock and key. Desires that are material in nature act as a lock. They lock us in samsara. Desires per se are not bad. Desiring is a unique faculty of human beings. Desire we must, but what we desire is the question. Now, to deserve Krishna, we must desire Krishna. If the ultimate D has to be Krishna, the first D also has to be for Krishna. When I desire Krishna, I shall deserve Krishna. Now, the same desire can also, instead of being a lock, can become a key. Key to Vaikuntha, the doorway to Vaikuntha. How? When the direction of the desire is changed, magically that desire becomes a key. The same binding desire becomes liberating in nature. Once again, using the often used phrase, Krishna flavor. Give a Krishna flavor to every desire, it transforms from a lock to a key. So therefore, when the Upanishad says, you are what your deep diving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. If our destiny is only this material world, then we continue to be choosing material desires and continue to be in the cycle of samsara. Now, this whirlpool of samsara, if we have to find an exit, then that desire needs to become Krishna flavored. That can only happen when we realize what our destiny is. The fundamental challenge for us is to first decide and realize what the destiny is. Because if that is not clear, then we cannot align anything else accordingly. That becomes the fundamental challenge. That is why when the Upanishads talk about Tattva Hita Purusharthas in full need to be well understood. There is a life beyond being animalistic. Human beings, while being endowed with faculties that are common to every other species, human beings have everything common to all other living beings, but there is something extra that has been given for a purpose. That extra is only for this one purpose of realizing what is the destination. The moment that awareness comes, then everything will start falling in place. This is what Upanishads teach us. Upanishads give us total clarity on the destination that is in store. They give us total clarity as to how to perform our deeds which are aligned with our destination. They give us total clarity as to how to exercise our will in a way that we will do actions that take us towards our destination. They give us total clarity as to how we choose our desires. Thus, by sipping 10 nectarean drops of Upanishads, we get few glimpses of the grandeur, the magnanimity of the Upanishads and the exhilarating truths that are hidden within the Upanishads. We started off with the Upanishad statement saying, Na vijigupsate, na vijigupsate. In our journey, the mind needs to be prepared to experience nectar. If the mind is not prepared, even nectar will taste like poison. Mind has to be prepared. You know, we can all experience, even when we are driving down, driving up, Bhagavan's, Krishna's vibhutis are all around. If we are looking at the vibhutis, but if we are also thinking about other things which are bothering us, then the nectar of Bhagavan's vibhutis will not be nectar. Mind needs to be prepared. So therefore, one of the poisons that the Upanishads say must be avoided at all costs is the poison of hatred. That's why Krishna, first characteristic of a bhakta, adveshta sarvabhutanam maitra karunayevacha. Not just adveshta, not only no hatred, maitra karunayevacha. Show compassion to the one who hurts you. That's what Krishna says. Very difficult for us. With Krishna Kripa, we will reach there some stage. Na vijigupsate. Preparing the mind. When we prepare the mind to taste the nectar, then we realize the source of that nectar. When the mind is prepared, Atmana vindate viryam. As we start experiencing the nectar, the mind is prepared and we realize the source of nectar is Krishna, not something else. And when we realize the source of that nectar is Krishna, then it also becomes clear to us that when we are presented with multiple choices, our job is made simple. We need to only make one choice all the time. Krishna first policy. Shreyohi dhirobhi preyaso vranite. Krishna first. Krishna above everything. He is my choice. Every other choice is aligned with that choice. While I lead my life rooted in experiencing that nectar, realizing that source of the nectar being Krishna, and making Krishna first as a policy in my life, I also need to realize that I am on a marathon. It's a journey. Therefore, patience is a virtue. Shraddhaya samvatsaram samvatsyata. It takes time, and we don't need to compare ourselves with anybody else. All of us are together on this glorious spiritual journey. We may see some ahead, some not ahead, doesn't matter. All of us are in the same direction, moving together, and there is no need to be impatient whatsoever. We don't need to be impatient about that self-realization happening. Even if I sit and grow my beard, self-realization will not happen. Even if I pack off and only stay here in the Himalayas all the time, not going back to Dubai, self-realization is not guaranteed. Yes, this is a Punya Bhumi, place where rishis have walked, and it is a great blessing. We need to constantly be contemplating and reflecting, but we need to be patient. Transformation is a slow formation. Takes time. Shraddhaya samvatsaram samvatsyata. And when we realize that, and when we are patient, and when we have Shraddha, something magical will happen. Something magical will happen. And what is that magic? Without we realizing, we become Krishna's chosen ones. We become Krishna's chosen ones. Esha Vivridate Tarum Swam. Krishna, we think we are yet to become chosen ones. We are already chosen. It is just that we need to be aware. It is not that tomorrow we will be chosen ones and that yesterday we were not chosen. It is that awareness that we are the chosen ones which is important. We are the chosen ones. He has already chosen us. He is loving us more than we could love Him. So it is the awareness that we are His chosen ones. And when we become aware, then through all the states of our being, we will contemplate on Bhagavan in our wakeful state, in our dream state, in our Shushupti state, and eventually in our Turiya state. We will continue to contemplate. Omiti etadaksharam idagum sarvam. And if we still have even an iota of doubt as to what would be the outcome of such constant contemplation, answer is loud and clear. Anandi bhavati. Anandi bhavati. He is the source of Brahmanand. He is the source of Ananda, and whenever we experience sweetness in life, we are already experiencing Him. As we discussed yesterday, everything is His Vibhuti. Anything that is beautiful, anything that is eminent, anything that attracts us, when we experience that sweetness, let us keep reminding ourselves that we are experiencing Krishna's sweetness. And when we realize that, we are prepared for that final stage where He is awaiting to give that unending limitless bliss. We should be assured of this without doubting Him. Why? Prajnanam Brahma. He knows what we need. Even the difficulties that we encounter today, He knows the reason why we need to go through them. Every experience has Krishna's signature. So therefore, unending bliss, Anandi Bhavati, guaranteed. If there are in during our life, the current life, as we are progressing towards that ultimate state, samsara, which is subject to dualities, there will be pains and pleasures, heat and cold. But we need to keep reminding ourselves of the statement Prajnanam Brahma. He knows more than what I need than myself. How do I cultivate this strong Shraddha that he knows more than me? Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhihi. Only when Sattva grows, it is with Sattva Guna we start realizing that Krishna is my eternal benefactor. He is the one who keeps giving me more than what I need. Even without asking, he keeps giving more. But to realize this, the mind needs to be purified. And for the purification of the mind, Sattva Guna has to be cultivated. And for Sattva Guna to be cultivated, Ahara Shuddhi becomes a prerequisite. Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhihi. When Sattva prevails, every desire from being a lock becomes a key to the kingdom of Krishna. Kamamaya evayam purusha iti, you just need to add one adjective. Krishna Kamamaya evayam purusha iti. Krishna Trishna evayam purusha iti. If Krishna Trishna drives us in all our actions, then all those actions lead us to our ultimate destination. Thus, through 10 sips of nectarine drops of the Upanishads, we gain a very important insight. The insight of how we are all already chosen by Krishna, and the only thing that we need to do is become deserving of Krishna by desiring Him alone. One phrase I want to conclude with is the policy of Krishna first. Krishna first, if it becomes the policy that governs our life and living, then success in all its forms. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanuddaraha, Tatra Shrihi, Vijayaha, Bhutihi, Drivanitir, Matirmama. Vyasam Vasishta Naptaram, Shakter Pautrama Kalmasham, Parasharatmajam Mande Shukadatam Taponidim, Vyasaya Vishnurupaya, Vyasarupaya Vishnave, Namo Vai Brahmanidhaye, Vasisthaya Namo Namaha. Sarvam Sri Krishnarpanamastu.